It started as a perfectly normal Saturday morning. I had just finished unloading groceries from my truck after a run to the county store when I noticed Karen's son stomping down the driveway, red-faced and yelling about something that sounded suspiciously like entitlement. Apparently, he had demanded that I hand over some of my groceries, because, in his mind, the HOA had rights over personal property on my ranch. I shook my head, amused at first, until Karen herself appeared moments later, waving her arms and screaming that she was calling the cops. She clearly thought this would intimidate me. After all, she'd spent years trying to enforce imaginary HOA rules, bully neighbors, and create a sense of authority over land she didn't own. What she didn't know, however, was that I held a position that made her tactics not just ineffective, but dangerous. I was the local police commander, responsible for the very officers she was now summoning. Karen's call went out, and within minutes, patrol cars began heading toward my ranch. I watched calmly, loading groceries into the house, all the while letting her believe that her plan was succeeding. Her son, meanwhile, continued to shout demands, completely oblivious to the fact that he was escalating a situation with someone who had both legal authority and years of experience in law enforcement. By the time the first officers arrived, I stepped outside to greet them. Karen's smug expression faltered immediately as she realized who they were reporting to. I calmly asked her son to explain the situation, listening as he repeated his demands for my groceries, his voice rising with frustration. Karen interjected, waving the phone and insisting that she had done the right thing by calling law enforcement. I listened patiently, letting the absurdity of the situation sink in. Then I addressed the officers. "They've reported a theft that never occurred," I explained. "This is private property, and no one here is authorized to take anything without permission. Let's document the incident and advise them on trespassing laws." The patrol officers, already aware of my position, subtly backed off while I dealt with Karen directly. She suddenly realized that calling the cops on me was not only pointless but potentially humiliating. I turned to Karen and her son, my tone calm but firm. "You've just attempted to claim entitlement to property that isn't yours. That's not only trespassing but harassment. You've involved law enforcement unnecessarily, and the truth is, you've created liability for yourselves." Karen sputtered, trying to argue about HOA rules, but I interrupted politely. "Those rules don't override property rights, nor do they supersede local law. On this property, I set the rules." The lesson was immediate and undeniable. Karen's attempts at intimidation collapsed entirely in the face of authority she could neither challenge nor influence. Her son slunk back, muttering excuses, while Karen's face turned crimson with anger, embarrassment, and frustration. She had tried to use the law against me, but in reality, she had walked straight into a situation where she had no leverage and no credibility. After the incident, I took additional steps to prevent future disturbances. Cameras were installed at the driveway entrance, private property signage made perfectly clear, and any further attempts by the HOA or her family to interfere with my life were logged for legal documentation. It wasn't just about groceries, it was about boundaries, respect, and making sure that anyone who tried to overstep knew exactly who they were dealing with. By the afternoon, peace returned to the ranch. Karen had learned, albeit painfully, that her position in the HOA did not give her power over my property, my household, or me personally. I could enforce my boundaries both legally and practically, and anyone attempting harassment would face consequences. As I unpacked the last of the groceries, I smiled, knowing that authority, preparation, and calm strategy had turned an absurd attempt at intimidation into a clear, undeniable victory.